it looks like we're due some sort of reset. It looks like we're due some sort of major change of world order. It does look like, how far can things really go in terms of immorality? Whether you look at Gaza, whether you look at, the double standards in terms of human rights, whether you look at sexual perversion, what's being taught to children, the corruption in health, the corruption in the economy, the corruption in councils. There's corruption everywhere, and, immorality is at an extreme. I don't know if you've noticed, and I'm not saying this is the only thing, but there is a common thread that runs between Surah Kahf of the Quran and Surah Waqiah, and the commentary by certain scholars in their own books. So things like Futuh al-Ghaib by Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, or the Muqaddimah by Ibn Khaldun. There's this one common thread that I've picked up on lately between these several pieces of work. And I'm, again, not saying it's the only thread, that the only commonality between them, but it is something that's really occurred to me for the time that we're living in right now. It's this concept of opposites. What I mean by that is that the one thing that I've been taking away from all of this is that what we perceive on the outside, what our perception of reality is not what the actual reality is. It's merely just our perception. And things are often quite opposite on the inside, or in their meaning. So in the form, they're a particular way, but in the meaning, they're very different. So I'll give an example of that from Surah Kahf, first of all. So in Surah Kahf, very famously, there are the examples of when Khidr goes and he bores a hole into the boat, for example, of poor people. Now, if we were there at that time, we would look at that on the outward and say, wait a minute, you're really affecting poor people. But then we learn later that actually there was a king that was on his way, and any boat that was in the ship, he would have destroyed them anyway. So actually Khidr did them a favor. There's these different examples. So it's like how things seem on the outside, they're very different on the inside. And then there's also the commentary for Surah Waqiah as well. In the commentary, some scholars talk about this concept of high and low, as in those people that are high in the beginning, they become low later on. So it could be that if you've got a level of success or you have a lot of height, you're high up in the dunya, then in the hereafter you'll be very low. Or it can also mean you can start off high, but then you will end up low before you even pass away. And those that start off low, they end up high later on. And then Ibn Khaldun, he talks about when the empire is declining, you have this situation where, this is how he refers to them as fools, who rise to the top, and they get cults that form around them. And they speak half-truths only. They speak a lot of rubbish, basically, but people take it as gospel. People take it as the truth. And the wise get alienated. They get shoved to one side. They get isolated. They get cut off from people. And nobody really listens to them, right? Even though they are the actual wise people and they have rank with Allah, it's the people that have no rank with Allah that actually rise to the top of society. Okay, so it's the inverse of what you would think would happen, rationally speaking and logically speaking. It's the inverse. And then even going back to Surah Waqiah as well, it's like the people that are low, eventually they can become high. And so people think that, if you're low, you'll always remain low, but they become high. And people that are always high, you think that they will always be of great stature in society, and then suddenly they end up without any stature. It's this concept of inversion that I've been noticing a lot lately, especially from the text, but then also out in society as well. And even in Futuh al-Ghaib, which is known as the Revelations of Unseen by Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, there's a theme that runs quite common in all of his discourses that keeps talking about, the person that's penniless or the person that doesn't have health, that he's actually honored by Allah because Allah is actually restricting his heart and not giving him too much of the dunya because he wants to give him more of the hereafter. Or that in this entire process, it's teaching him something, right? It's polishing his heart. And Surah Waqiah speaks to that as well, that people are low in the land in the beginning and then they become the imams of the land later on. So Allah keeps them low for a length of time and then raises them afterwards. We've seen that even with the situation of Yusuf alayhi salam. He was sold away by his brothers. He was put in very humiliating situations. And then after he was given governorship and, he had a lot of status, his people used to come to him for counsel and he had a lot of respect and a lot of stature. So he became high in society later. So it's this concept of inversion. And I really think we're at the peak of that in society right now. And as much as people find it hard to believe, but the meanings that you can derive from all of this, I see that playing out right now. Like, People who are doing very well are only really doing well because they are doing business that's unethical, or it's immoral, or they're just plain out cheating one way or the other. It's perfectly legal, but it's immoral. Islamically it would be considered against the deen, but it's been legalized in the West and people are doing it. Riba is legal. Nobody really questions riba, for example. Riba is what's running the entire financial world at the moment all around the globe. One of the most respectable professions in society is somebody who's like an investment banker, for example. Does that person have a lot of rank in the eyes of Allah? Not at all. So there is something on the inward, there's something on the inside that we have to start looking at. I'm not just talking about looking at people, I'm saying looking at what do events and what do things actually mean? What is the meaning behind something as to what's going on right now? And look at who has success right now. Look at the people that influence you. Is their success one of real substance? As in, do they also have rank with Allah? Or is it just outward success because they are conforming to the system that we live in right now? And this system is all about cheating. The system that we're in right now, it's an immoral system. It's a vacuous system. It's an unethical system. It's a very hollow system. But those people that are doing really well are those people that have really plugged themselves into it and are really conforming to it, and the system is rewarding them. But the people that are choosing not to conform to the system, the people that are choosing to recognize the immorality of the system, the things that we live in, whether it's health, whether it's economy, these people are either isolated or they're pushed down or they're ignored, right? And there are a lot of people who don't necessarily have money or don't necessarily have health because Allah's chosen that for them. But there might be people that are actually very wise. There might be people that actually have a lot of rank with Allah, but we probably don't give them time of day. We probably don't give them a second look. And that's the thing that I'm talking about in terms of this inversion. This has been said to us, these signs have been given to us, this knowledge has been given to us from Surah Kahf, from Surah Waqiah, from the Futuh al-Ghaib, commentary by the scholars. Ibn Khaldun has spoken about these things. These people are all speaking about it because this is something that happens in society over and over. It is possible that it could happen in our lifetimes. And at that point, I think things are going to really flick. That those people that were really pushed down, that didn't have any rank or status in society, I think Allah's going to raise them much higher. And those people that have had a lot of respect and a lot of status in society that have that right now, I think, it's very possible that they're going to get humiliated or pushed very much down. I think those times are coming. And we've seen that from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with the Quraysh. We've seen that with other prophets as well, with Musa alayhi salam, with Pharaoh, with Yusuf alayhi salam. For Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it took 25 years. For Musa alayhi salam, it probably would have taken a couple of decades as well. It does take time, but I think we're getting very much closer to it. The only reason that I'm sharing this is, A, if you're somebody that doesn't have success right now, or doesn't have health right now, or has a low status in society right now, because inshallah things are going to change and Allah will recognize what's in your heart. Like, especially if you are in a state of despair and you're downtrodden because you've chosen to do the right thing by Allah. You've chosen not to get involved in a system that's full of riba. You've chosen not to cheat, not to be immoral. These kind of things. Then inshallah Allah will reward you in this life and in the hereafter. And for those that have a lot of success, I think we need to be really careful about who we take our knowledge and wisdom from, and really start to look amongst our midst and see, like, actually, who is the person that actually has any real wisdom. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, look for me amongst the miskeen. So maybe we should be looking towards the miskeen, and maybe these are the people that are of real rank. But I think change is coming because it's due. And I know a lot of people are resisting change as well. A lot of people are really afraid that there's this change that's coming and how bad things could get, because we're so used to relying on the institutions that we've looked up to, despite them being immoral institutions. I mean, if any of us were running these institutions, we would have a lot to answer for to Allah. But I do think that they will be replaced by something better. There will be a group of people that will rise from the ashes, so to speak, that will have the justice, inherent justice and the inherent wisdom to know how to build new institutions that will serve society better, will serve humanity better. That's something that I'm very much looking forward to. But when it's going to happen, I don't know. All I'm saying is, don't fear it, look forward to it, and look out for the inversion. And to be fair, you might have actually already noticed some of these things that are taking place, whether it's people that had a lot of success over the last 10, 15 years. You might have noticed that suddenly they've become humiliated. They don't have the stature that they once had. It could be a celebrity, it could be an actor that, could not do any wrong or just had a really successful career, and suddenly they've disappeared or they've gotten humiliated. It could be a brand that could do no wrong, that did really, really well, a car manufacturer or a sports label or a technology brand that now is really, really struggling. It could just be somebody that's done really well in business that isn't doing very well in business anymore. Or it could be even a nation that had a lot of strength and stature and had a lot of respect, but doesn't have it anymore. You can see the signs of it already. I've noticed this with, big celebrities like Will Smith, for example. I've noticed it with car brands like Porsche. I can see this unraveling taking place around me. And it's not just at the macro level. The micro level is always a reflection of the macro, and the macro is always a reflection of the micro. When, for example, tyranny is taking place all around the globe, you will notice tyranny taking place by either your employer or somebody who has authority over you in the house. You will notice that tyranny taking place at a local level, at a micro level. And when the tyranny disappears at the macro level, or when justice appears at the macro level, it then also tends to appear at the micro level as well. And you will notice it with people around you as well. Somebody who probably had a lot of success around you, who has a lot of stature just in your community or in society around you, you will notice that there have probably been some signs of things cracking. Things are not as good as they seem, even though outwardly everything seemed perfect and everything seemed great, and you probably wanted a life like theirs, and now you realize, wait a minute, there was a whole host of issues taking place on the inside. And you look at your own situation and you might think, actually, my situation is actually much more better off than I was expecting. I hadn't realized how good I actually have it. And inshallah, that's only going to get better. I think that inversion, as I said, has already started, and I think that unraveling's already started. There are a lot of narratives that the West has pushed for the last 30 or 40 years, a lot of which are now breaking down. I can't get too political, as you know, because otherwise, they just end up closing down the channel or flagging the video and things, but you all know what I'm talking about. And there's also been actual reversals and actual U-turns as well on certain policies that have been implemented in the West, because people are giving up on that as well. People are not buying into a lot of these things that are just plain immoral. And I'm looking forward to the other side, basically. I know a lot of people are really afraid if America collapses, or if these institutions that we rely on collapse, then what's left? What are the options that are left? And those options are not great. I'm not looking at things like that. And I'm not looking at things like that just purely because of Surah Kahf and Surah Waqiah. I'm not looking at things, with my brain, so to speak, or logically, so to speak. I'm looking at things with my heart, and I'm looking at things in terms of the examples that Allah has given us. And how even things looked completely upside down or completely wrong on the outside, as in the case of Khidr, actually turned out to be a blessing and to be good. Or in the case of Rasulullah with the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, for example, things looked like this is over, this is bad, but it ended up being a blessing. My faith is in that. That's what I'm putting my trust in, that inshallah something very good is coming, despite how bad or evil it might look, or how wrong it might look, despite us having this fear that, everything's going to collapse and things are going to get worse for us. I'm not looking at things that way, just purely because of the examples that Allah has given us, and purely because of the faith that we should have in Allah, that He's going to do something really good for us, because the system is all wrong. And maybe He will punish the people that have been upholding this immorality and this injustice in this life. And even if He doesn't, maybe He'll vanquish them, and maybe He will punish them in the afterlife. But inshallah, the people that have chosen to not plug into the system, inshallah, He will reward them in this life and in the hereafter as well. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.